Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining the session AI as Co-Designer, Reimagining Open Pedagogy through Transparent Ethical AI Integration. My name is Jennifer Seyler, and I'm going to be talking today about AI as a threat or as an opportunity. And I really see it as an opportunity if it can be leveraged as a design-centered approach that does a couple things, such as positions AI as a co-designer, amplifies critical thinking. That's one of the biggest points I would like to make. It makes learning more adaptable and participatory. So before I go into how I do that in the classroom, I want to have make some tool clarifications. So we all know that ChatGPT is a large language model, and that's what's used in my classroom. But we also use a course-specific created GPT that has open sources in it that focuses on our subject, which happens to be consumer behavior. And so GPT as a large language model is used as a generative AI tool. So the LLM is the engine where the generative AI describes what the system does. So our presentation purpose really is twofold: to demonstrate how this AI can be intentionally integrated into open sourced education resource-based courses to not only strengthen access and rigor, but also learner agency. So individuals learning how to better learn, better think. Also, intentional and transparent integration can strengthen the foundational values of our education community. Not being able to understand what a tool is and just kind of keeping it away versus using it responsibly is a big miss in my mind. So here are the learning outcomes. We'll be analyzing how AI can function as a co-designer. We'll develop transparent AI use languages and collaboration statements that really allow students to think more. And then we'll also apply the CARE framework to redesign the case study that we're going to talk about. And so we might be asking, why are we looking at ways to enhance critical thinking and to get our students to think more? Well, you can see here there's a bunch of organizations and establishments that consistently describe critical thinking as one of the abilities they most want in hires. But when we look to see where new hires are, they're not right, they're not where they need to be. So employers repeatedly say there's a readiness gap. So NACE, who connects colleges and employers together, this organization had conducted some research, and employers rated recent graduates critical thinking at a 3.77 out of 5. But where it needs to be from an employer perspective is closer to 4.48. So we have a definite gap in the ability of our students to critically think. So another, just to top that off, in research found by the Washburn University in 2024, a lot of students are completing their coursework with kind of the developing level of critical thinking and not the advanced level, which is where they need to be, kind of that capstone where we expect them to be when they're done with actual coursework. So the example I'm going to go over is for undergraduate students. It's a consumer behavior class, and particularly I'm going over the Sneaker Hustle project. And what I did from an open AI standpoint was redesign the case study so that it could be more dynamic, and that AI would help the students better ask questions and better understand and not just take information as face value. And again, this was developed with openly licensed or publicly available materials. Here is a QR code and the link to the actual assignment that I give my students, so you can get it there. It's not editable, but you can cut and paste it as you need. So what we do here is in the Sneaker Hustle project, students are asked to look and leverage Sneaker Hustle, a specific video. And then after they analyze it from a consumer behavior standpoint, to then pick another brand where they can apply those concepts. And so as they go through the assignment, their AI helps them determine, gives them kind of some examples so that they understand what to look for. But then on top of that, they're supposed to critique, revise, and document kind of where they collaborated with AI. So what we're doing here is making their thinking visible and AI's thinking visible. And this aligns nicely with the CARE framework, which some of you may not be aware of. It is, here it means contribute, attribute, release, and empower. And so here the students are generating additional variations of the assignment. And so I can take that information, and if at the end of the assignment it is a better version, or not necessarily a better version, but a very good example of consumer behavior and how we wanted to demonstrate it, I can leverage that and share it back into the GPT to help further enhance its training. And then peers share their information among themselves as well. Attribute, so structured AI collaboration statements require students to distinguish between AI and what they said. So that's one of the key things is, not saying I created this, and we're not cutting and pasting from AI. We are actually having a conversation, so to speak, and treating it like it was one of my peers in the class or maybe a teaching assistant. That's kind of how I explain the GPT for the classes. Think of it as your teaching assistant, or if I'm not available, which is rare, that, just to act like you're talking to me. And feel free that if you think you get something that might be questionable, feel free to, email it to me and said, hey, I've been using this. This is what I got. I was like, I can always use this information to enhance the model. And then release. So it's coming up with things that can be shared. I shared how I reuse the information to further train the model. Peers share it, make it available to as many as we can, so that we're not necessarily constantly recreating the wheel. It's also a good template for them for other courses and assignments of how to leverage AI to help them critically think. And so that kind of leads to empower, serving as a structured scaffolding, really allows them to analyze what goes on in their head, or what we want to be going on in their head that they might not have realized is happening all along. So contribute. So in our case here, we have, our chat GPT. We put in some of the students. I'm not quite sure exactly what their initial prompts are. They know what exactly we want to get out, what the bigger picture is. And so again, it is putting it in and having it, it's our model's trained not to give you an answer, but to lead you in a direction that can help you get the answer or help you think through the answer. So here again, we're not cutting and pasting. What we're doing is reflecting. They need to reflect on their actual own analytical thinking. And so for our project, it's thinking, what was the sneakerhead, concepts, and then how can those concepts be applied to the brand that they want to discuss. Your goal is not to repeat what AI produces, but to extend, adapt, or challenge it in ways that add new insight. Again, the challenging it is key. I tell them it is just a machine. It cannot really understand what's going on. So it's your responsibility to say, hey, is this real? Did you make it up? Can you double check this? I'm still confused about X, Y, and Z. Please further explain this and provide the resources or references that you use. So attribute, big on this. You've seen it throughout this presentation, the beginning of the presentation. I use different sorts of AI in all the platform, or in everything that I do for the most part, because it's just helps me get things done faster. But at the end of the day, you are also responsible for everything. So it's not a cutting and pasting. It's a let's help me get moving here, and then I finalize it. So being able to make sure that you say how it's being used and when it's being used is extremely important, just like any other source. We just want to make sure that, using sources isn't, and things to enhance, Grammarly and spell check and, all the other Microsoft tools. Like we've had these kind of tools before, just maybe not to this degree. And one thing I hear on this slide that I find very helpful for my students is the reflection on the AI use. So it's not just thinking about it, but writing those couple sentences down, because again, it makes them think again. Initially, my students will say they hated reflections, and now they have a better appreciation because they do understand it helps them actually solidify what was going on. Release. So there's 4 parts in this particular assignment. We've gone through, they have to identify their consumer behavior concepts in the sneaker hustle video, and it's in their words. They can still use AI, but it's as an assistant or, talking. And then they apply that to their brand. And then the part 3 and 4 is, how could you go in briefly describe how you could expand this into a deeper analysis? What would you study further? What strategic questions emerge? Again, you ask yourself that, you ask the AI platform that as well, and you come up with your response. And then, of course, closing off with that AI collaboration statement. Empower is the last step. And again, this really revolves again around the reflection. Which AI generated idea did you reject and why? So it's helping you critically think again. And so it's really just a constant cycle of critically thinking if leveraged correctly. And so these prompts do something, subtle but powerful, because they turn AI into a cognitive tool. So it's not just productivity, but it's really helping you think in a different way. So here again, here's a summary of the care alignment and how everything all fit together. Once again, really emphasizing getting students to be able to critically think, but also to share that information that they get with others. So I might not have hit hard on it, but it is about whether we will do small group discussions as well around these points. And then there's Padlet posts that we share information and our experience through. So it's not just all happening in a silo. We are sharing the information out, and information is reused either in template form for the students, for me, or to train the model. And so, again, really not replacing, but really helping them learn the learning process and better themselves as a student. So if there is anything else, any questions, please feel free to connect with me. Here's my email and my LinkedIn. Thank you.